I don't like this forest. I don't like this forest. I don't like this forest. The air is thick with spores and with the smell of rotting and decay. This is supposed to be the way we always take when we're heading towards the plains and the fingers, but even though our otter mark is cut into the trees, the fishing arrow with 2 barbs, I have no memory of our surroundings. We're all hungry. Daisy's been grizzling and she's sleepy, not wanting to walk. The women are taking turns carrying her. The men are trying to keep up a brave face. They trot off into the trees in search of game and forage, but they're finding hardly anything. I think we're lost. The ground is cut and heaped into ditches and ridges of slippery clay and dead branches hung with rags of moss. The storm, yes, that storm that I saw coming weeks past back in the village, it finally came 2 days ago and the rain hasn't let up since. Water drips down our necks and tangles our hair into ropey lengths. We look like a little tribe of outcasts, splattered with mud, bedraggled and slowed to a meandering trudge through the dull green light that hangs miserably under the birches and elms. We are all tired, and I am tired, and I'm hungry, and I'm miserable. Deep down inside, miserable. How could Yarrow do this to me? How could Net be so stupid? It's supposed to be done right, a naming. It's supposed to be a happy time that all the tribe share in. There should be the dance that the woman makes, and the men should be in a circle, and everyone should have a good idea of who's going to be called. That's all part of it. There should be giggling. There should be the anointing and food. There's supposed to be lots of food, and believe me, Mum, there's precious little grub available right at this moment. She's our leader. Some leader. And then she goes and does this. She's our keeper, and she should be the one making sure the rules are kept. That's her task. She's my friend, and she's named my brother, and the idiot is besotted with her already. Well, they can kiss my... Sorry, Mum. They can sort themselves out. And now what's this? Why are we stopping? Yarrow? Why has everyone stopped? Who is this? The Sky Machine by Martin Liddermont, performed by Phoebe Lawrence. Season 2, Chapter 6, Hungry. Here, 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 look here, said the man who was made from smoke and dust. This is for you, for you. I looked down at the carved ball he had lifted from a wide hollow, a ground-out cup in a rough block of stone. All the others in our group were sat round in a circle, staring, and he was picking on me. Why? Did Yarrow know him? Had she put him up to it? Anyway, I took the ball, which was heavy. I had to use both hands. The whole journey had seen people giving me things to look at, things to touch, things that were just strange. Why me? Did I look like a person that needed to have things given to them? I just wanted to get on with the journey, do my duty as a weather watcher, and finally sit down and have a proper chat with the family. Was that too much to ask? We were at this crossroads. Well, there were more than 4 ways the paths led, so I suppose it was a many roads, maybe. What do you call something with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different ways you can go? This man was standing right in the middle when we arrived. His face and hands were covered in ashes, and the rest of him looked like a smoked rabbit. All sinewy and reddened and glossy, like he'd been hung over the fire. He looked old. I thought maybe he was another server, but he didn't behave like one. He was bounding about, squatting down and leaping up again, and he chatted, like an angry magpie. It's very nice, I said, turning the ball and examining it. Have to be polite. Read it, he said. All right, now I'm lost again. What does read mean? Smell it? Lick it? Roll it? He pointed at the ball and gibbered another set of words. I wondered, perhaps we should exchange something for the ball. But it doesn't feel like he's given it to me to keep. He wants me to do something with it. I settled myself more comfortably and managed to lift the ball up to eye level. It had been very well made, from some sort of pale stone with flecks of black in it. It was smooth and it had many sharp-cut markings. It wasn't like the strange ice the servers in the village in the mountains gave me. That was nothing like anything in the world that I have ever touched before. This ball was definitely stone, and made the way we shaped the same sort of thing in our village, for rolling and pressing out skins to make them smooth. It was just bigger, and with those deep-cut marks on it. I tried touching one of the marks, and the man leaned forwards eagerly, his face right up to my hands. His red-rimmed eyes looked into mine and he nodded, vigorously. All my people gave a sort of sigh and leaned forward as well, trying to see what was happening. Now I had 2 score eyes and more staring at me. No pressure then. It didn't make sense. The marks were things like the shape of a hare, a wild pig, a flower of some sort. Could have been a lily. And there was an arrow and other things. A house, a mouth, and an ear, a knife, an antler, like tribe marks perhaps, but bold and simple. Carefully drawn and chiselled in really well by a skilled maker, but just ordinary marks. Not as beautiful as the animals in the cave where Yarrow took me. Thinking of that reminded me of Net. Wonder where he was right at that moment. Lurking around in the trees, watching from a distance, no doubt. There's no way Yarrow was going to bring him into the group, whether she was leader or not. They'll pull her apart and then sacrifice him. Alright, that was me being mad. Maybe they would just beat him and dunk her in the next river. Idiots, both of them. It wasn't helping. I got my thoughts back to where we were and what I was doing. I took one more polite look at the ball, and then I shook my head and smiled at the madman. "I'm sorry," I said, in my nicest voice. "I don't understand, but it's lovely. Thank you for showing it to me." And I tried to hand it back to him. "Oh," he said, looking incredibly disappointed. "Oh, well then. Can't read it. Doesn't know." He refused to take the ball from me, pushed it away, and then he jumped up and trotted round inside the circle made by my people. "Maybe you would like to hear a story instead? All of you? Then I can show you where to get food. Hungry, hungry people? I think you are hungry when lost in the forest." Yarrow stood up. "We do need food," she said, very slow and formal. "We will be grateful if you can fetch us some, or show us the way to where it is. We are on the journey, so we don't have much to give in return, but we could do some work for you if we can help you in any way before we continue." The man stopped running and jumped up and down on the spot. "The journey!" he exclaimed. "The journey to the sacred place across the water! Yes, very important. The old gods drive the sheep and the new gods shear the flock. Good sheep, good sheep. Bah, bah." Yarrow frowned, but said nothing. The man stopped hopping and sat down suddenly, as if his legs had collapsed, but he was grinning. "Story first, food afterwards, and then we'll see," he said. "Listen, listen, listen." We all sat very still. Daisy crept forwards and snuggled against me, watching the man with wide eyes. His head dropped forwards until his beard was rubbing against his skinny chest. For a moment, I thought he was asleep. But then he looked up and spoke, and this time his voice was different. It was deeper, and he talked as though he was singing. This is what he said.
"A stone as big as the world, as bright as the sun. The stag bellows his hot breath inside. The stone splits, it shatters. The world is made, rivers, valleys and hills. The gods play, make the winds blow, the waters run. But one last piece, flint hard and sharp, sticks in the ground, upright and proud, refuses to yield, says it is special, made to be ruler. The stag stamps, breaks it. They are woman and man. The man makes his camp in the smoke of the lodge, the woman in house to name and to birth, to shape and to make, holds the hearth where she hollows and makes space in the world. Thus they thrive for long years, many winters and springs, and their children grow taller. Then comes the need, come floods and bad harvests, tribe turns on tribe, grow to grasping and evil, to raids and to bloodshed. The stag stamps again, sparks fall in the water, the salt and the sweetness, the two worlds of being, one living, one dying, forever to cross and forever to question. When our thoughts join our memories, when wisdom clasps speaking in the world of the dead, they will answer us clearly.
The tribe breathed out a long-held gasp as he finished. Yarrow raised her hand. She was weeping silently. "Thank you for your gift of the story," she said. The man grinned like a fox. "Not a gift, not a gift," he exclaimed, and his voice was mad again. "Told to tell it, told, made and told to tell, and this—" Suddenly he leaned forward, his eyes bright and fierce, his voice hissing like a snake. "These ways through the wood, one to the swamp, one to the wolves, and one to the spears. The sharp spears in the back, knives in the belly, one to the sickness and one to starvation. But one path to the daylight and the great fingers. That's the right place. That's where they want to be, but which way should they go? Oh, who can tell? Who can tell?" Inside I thought, what is he saying to us, Mum? That if we take these paths we will come to those things? And there's only one right way? Yarrow looked at him doubtfully. "Can you tell us the way?" she asked. The man leaped into the air. "Ha!" he cried. "The right way! The stone knows. The stone will tell you." He reached out and grasped the stone ball in my hands, turning it and chattering to me excitedly. "The arrow is the way. The ear is a question. The mouth is speaking. That way? That way? Maybe that way. Listen. The weather watcher knows. Ask the stone. It will talk to you, tell you which way is safe." It was madness, true madness. How can a stone talk? And they were all looking at me with such expectation in their faces. My heart sunk into the earth, Mum. "Here, here," he said, and he placed the stone ball in its stone cup and beckoned me closer to look. There were signs marked around the rim, made inside 2 rings. I couldn't make out what they were. I looked at him. "Ask it," he said, and he nodded encouragingly. "What am I to ask it?" I said. I could feel the tears starting to prickle in my eyes. "The thing you want most," he replied. And I thought, what I want most is to get out of the forest and to have something to eat. But it's not just me, is it? Now I have a responsibility for all of us, all our rumbling bellies and our fears and our hopes. I want us to find the right path to the fingers, and I want us to be able to find food," I said. He bounced up and down on his heels and he clapped his hands. "Very good," he exclaimed. "Ask then, ask." "All right." I bent forwards and I addressed the stone ball in my most serious voice. "How do we get out of the forest?" I asked it. And then I remembered to add, "Please." "No, no, no," he shouted, and he clamped a hand over my mouth and shook his head. "Hush," he hissed. and he pointed to the ball again. So no talking then. Now what? There was a sharp notch cut into the inside ring of marks, and I could see that the ball sat with its arrow sign sticking up against it. So I thought very hard for a minute. Really, really hard. Then I reached out and I twisted the ball, looking for the mark that was shaped like an open mouth. And the most amazing thing happened, Mum. The 2 rings of marks around the hollow where the ball sat turned as I moved it. The stone grated and ground, but it moved quite easily for all that. I found the mouth and I put it up against the notch. "Ah," said the man, and "Ah," said everyone else. And they bent forwards again, their faces intent. So I had opened the mouth. What should I ask? I could see a mark that looked like a spread hand on the other side of the ball, low down. I twisted the stone again and brought it to the notch, and both the rings turned, but faster this time. And we needed food. I had to ask for food. I brought the slaughtered pig to the notch, and the outer ring turned a half turn and clicked and stopped. The ball wouldn't budge. I looked at the wild man. "See," he said. I looked down. The 2 rings had brought together their marks to make completed signs, which had all been cut in half along their middles. They were the same as on the ball. I could see that now. I just didn't recognise them when they were split in 2. He pointed to them in turn and looked at me, and I said what I could see. "Walk. The path. The fingers. The food." He put his hands to his eyes very deliberately and slowly, and then opened his arms out to me and smiled, a proper, normal smile. "You can see," he said, and he pointed one last time. There it was, the last symbol of all, the arrow. And now I realised with a start that this arrow carved on the rim was the same as our tribe mark, the 2-barbed head. The arrow on the ball rested against it. The arrows pointed together to the 3rd path on the right. "That way?" I asked, and he nodded peacefully. "We go on this path," I said to my tribe, and they stood as one and followed me. As each person passed the ball in its wide stone cup, they knelt for a moment and touched the signs, gently running fingertips over the marks and bowing to the man. He sat placidly, acknowledging each bow with a slight inclination of his head. Yarrow was last. She didn't look at him. We walked into the trees, and already it felt as though the light was getting brighter and the trees themselves were becoming more spaced apart. We went on, and there were patches of blue to be seen through the canopy. We stood at the edge of the forest. Before us stretched the open plains. Daisy jumped up and down as much as the wild man did and shouted and waved her arms. The men shouted and lifted their weapons as they saw the movement of herds of animals in the middle distance. The women sang, and one, it's older, she's always larking. She lifted me up onto Yarrow's shoulders, despite both our protests. We tottered a few steps, but I'm too big for a game like that, and we took the inevitable tumble onto the grass. For a moment we were rolling around, holding each other and laughing, and then we remembered our places and we jumped up, brushing seeds and pollen out of our clothes and our hair. Yarrow strode forwards to the head of the group. The men spread out, trotting towards the animals. Soon they would vanish into the long grass of the plains, and then they would be back to the camp with the food we all needed. The right order of things was restored, the world put back to normal. I turned for one last look back towards the forest, and I saw, like a gleam of white against the dark, clotted thunderclouds of the trees, the tall figure of Server Ash, who was standing with the wild man, watching us go. And then they vanished into the forest, and the way to the place of the hand, the great stone fingers, was before us. The Sky Machine is written by Martin Lidderman and performed by Phoebe Lawrence. Music by Purple Planet Music, Daniel Birch and the Pangolins. Special thanks to Stratford Youth Theatre, which provides high-quality drama workshops for children and young people in and around Stratford-upon-Avon. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can listen to the first season at skymachine.podbean.com or search for Sky Machine on any of the major podcast platforms.